Hi, everyone, and welcome to Gruff Talk, where each week we take a deep dive into all the ways we can feel better, look better, live better, and age better. I'm your host, Barbara Hannah Grufferman. You know how much I believe that moving more is one of the best ways to age better, and I'm so excited to welcome Gretchen Reynolds to the show today. For many years, Gretchen was one of the most read, most popular columnists for the New York Times. She wrote the Phys Ed column, which was my go-to for the latest research on exercise and aging. But not too long ago, Gretchen moved over to the Washington Post. And so I, of course, got a subscription to the Washington Post, so I will never miss a word that she writes. One of her best-known stories was about a hotel room workout developed by two exercise scientists. Gretchen called it the scientific 7-minute workout, and it became a global sensation, spurring new apps and public interest in the potency of brief, intense workouts. Her 2012 book, The First 20 Minutes, and I truly think I was the first person online to buy it, was a New York Times bestseller. Gretchen's specialty as a journalist is she digs deep into the science behind exercise and fitness and how it all helps us to age better. So I invited her on the show today to talk through 3 of her recent columns for the Washington Post and to also talk a bit about how all the new research she's been studying has helped her make different and maybe even better choices to stay healthy and fit in 2023. Lots to talk about, so let's get this chat started. I'm so happy to welcome Gretchen Reynolds to the show today. Gretchen writes the Your Move column for the Washington Post and has been my number one favorite columnist for, I want to say, for over 15 years, maybe 16 years, because she has this incredible ability to take complicated scientific research behind exercise and fitness and write about it in language that we can all understand. So welcome to Gruff Talk, Gretchen.
Thanks so very much for having me.
So Gretchen, you wrote what was probably one of the most read, most popular columns ever for the New York Times, called Phys Ed, and for 15, 16 years, something like that. But I know I was following you the whole time. And then, every Tuesday morning, which is when all the health and wellness stuff came out from the New York Times, I would hobble down, get my coffee, read the New York Times, and look to see what did Gretchen Reynolds have for me today? What words of wisdom and what new research? It was really incredible. Then about 6 months ago, something like that, yes, you and a few of your colleagues from the New York Times moved over to the Washington Post, and your new column is called Your Move, which is equally fabulous. And I just want to let you know, and everyone at the Post should know too, I had kind of let that subscription lapse, and now it's reignited. I am a reader of the Washington Post once again, thanks to you, Gretchen. Okay. So today we're going to review 3 recent stories that you did that I found to be fascinating, of course, science-backed, and I think are really, really important for the Gruff Talk audience because, like me, they all want to age better and they want to know all the information they can in order to do that. So we're going to start with grip strength, okay? Your article about what grip strength can tell you about how well you're aging. I found this absolutely fascinating for a lot of reasons, but especially when I read the subtitle, which I'm going to read now. Grip strength is closely linked to mortality in people of all incomes and may be a better indicator of life expectancy than blood pressure. Wow, Gretchen, that was really powerful. And so I've always been fascinated by strength and grip strength as it relates to aging. So tell us about this research and about your cover of it.
I'm also very interested in all of this since I'm not getting younger either. This study was particularly interesting because there already was some pretty good evidence that how strong you are is linked to your longevity. There were good, big studies showing that people who were stronger tended to live longer. But there were lots of questions about why, and also how you might measure that. whether you could change it, all of that. And so this study looked at a pretty big group of people. It was more than 1,200 men and women who had already had their grip strength measured using a dynamometer, which is that hand grip that you use to measure that. And then they also had blood tests done. And the scientists used there's one right there.
I know, for those of you who are just listening and maybe not watching on YouTube, I'm holding one up. As soon as I read the first study about this, and it probably was from you, Gretchen, I went to Amazon and I got this. Yep. Everybody should have one, or a measure.
You can also often find dynamometers at your gym if you wind up wanting to check your grip strength after this. But the reason this study...
Or a physical therapist.
The thing that was particularly interesting about this study was they took blood from these same people and they used it to check a feature called your epigenetic age. And that basically means how old your cells are. And it's sort of amazing that they can now determine, in effect, how old your cells are, meaning how close they are basically to dying, to becoming frail and old, just like us. And they can do that by looking at marks on the outside of your genes. And our genes change over the course of as we age. Everything we do, what we eat, when we sleep, how much we exercise, those change how our genes work. And what they can do now is look at marks on the outside of your DNA and use machine learning, big algorithms to, in effect, tell how old your genes are. And that can be very, very different than how old you are, meaning your chronological age.
So it's really biological age versus chronological age. Is that right?
Someone's chronological age could be 55. That would mean they've been alive for 55 years. Their biological age, which means basically how old your cells are, can be anywhere from 25 to 85. And they're now using a whole series of what they call biological clocks to look at how old your cells are. And in this study, they used people's grip strength to then compare to their biological age. And the weaker someone was, the lower their grip strength was, the older their biological age. No matter what their birthday said, that their cells were older if they were weaker.
And how much of this is genetic versus lifestyle? Do we know that?
Very little of this is genetics, because this is what they call epigenetics, which is what you do to your genes over the course of your life. And so most of this is determined by how you live. And in this case, some people were not as strong as other people, and that was men and women. And these were people who were middle-aged and up. And so of almost any age, even someone 45, if their grip strength was quite low, their cells were quite old. So a 45-year-old who was weak could easily have a biological age of 65. And a 65-year-old who was strong could have a biological age of 45.
I find this so fascinating. And this is really what we're talking about here, because so much of this, Gretchen, is in our control, is what you're saying, right?
Yes, it
how
does.
You exercise, how often, how much, what you eat, how much you drink. I mean, on and on. These are all lifestyle choices. And you offered some kind of good news in your piece also, because after you went through all of this, you did say, but it's okay. There are things you can do if you are weak, right?
Yes. And the first thing to know is that you improve grip strength, not necessarily by stealing, and I'll hold up something for those. My son is a rock climber, and I do sometimes use his rock climbing hand grips to just work on my hand grip. But the best way to improve your hand grip is to just do any kind of strength training, because hand grip strength really is a measure of the overall strength and health of your muscles. So if you're just getting started, go to the gym if you can. If you can't, see if you can do a modified push-up. You don't have to do a full push-up all stretched out. Do a push-up against the wall. Just start doing almost anything. And there's very good evidence you will pretty quickly start improving your grip strength. And hopefully that can actually dial back your biological age, which is pretty incredible.
Oh, it's so incredible. Really, I mean, you have written so many columns over the years, and I've read them all. And I find that this is one of the most important ones that you've done. I mean, they've all been amazing. And the research behind and the science behind it has all been amazing and eye-opening, and really made me say, okay, well, I can do this. But this is it's so incredible to me, because it is science backed, but also it does show you that if you just change a few things, and as you just pointed out, Gretchen, if you just do a few simple things like push-ups against the wall or even down on the ground, I mean, maybe get a trainer to help you out in the beginning, whatever it'll take, you can improve this. And therefore you can improve your biological age, it sounds like, which I think is great and encouraging.
I think it's a good reminder to people that we do need to do strength training, because a lot of people may find it more fun, or they may just think that it's easier to go for a walk or do aerobics or something. And I'm a big fan. I run and bike ride. I would rather probably not go to the gym, but it really is increasingly clear, especially as we age, we have to be strong. And it's not just that it gives us
for
independence.
So many reasons, Gretchen. Absolutely. To stop us from being frail, to keep us independent for as long as possible and mobile. But also, I'm a big believer and a big advocate for bone health. I'm on the board of the Bone Health and Osteoporosis Foundation. I've been for many, many years. And that's a really big initiative of mine and a focal point. And this ties into that. Also, brain health, we now know there are studies behind that, how strength training specifically can help keep the brain sharp. So it goes on and on and on. But the fact that you can tie that back to really helping your cells to slow down aging, maybe even reverse some of the damage done, is just incredibly positive information. And by the way, for everyone, and I did say it in my introduction to you of this episode, for those of you who don't want to go to a gym, there's a great thing that Gretchen actually kind of, created, if you will, with some scientists, called the 7-minute, what is it called? The 7-minute workout, right? The scientific 7-minute workout.
The scientific 7-minute workout, yes.
Yes, I mean, you can find it anywhere, but there will be a link to it in the show notes for those who want to check it out, and you should. And you can find all of these really great ways to exercise on your own and at home online, and I will be adding a few of those links, including, as I said, this scientific 7-minute workout, which really just became a global phenomenon. But again, I'm picking up my little Dynamometer. Did I get that right?
I think it's
and I'm
dynamometer.
You're right. You're right. You're so right. You're so right. I was so wrong on that. But yeah. And it was so inexpensive. And if you can't get access to one, as Gretchen pointed out, at a gym or at a physical therapy office, I encourage you to maybe check it out on Amazon or wherever. And it's a good thing to have, because once you've decided to make this a priority, you can have your baseline, and then you can start to do what you're supposed to be doing, everyone. And then you can see the results, which will be really very motivating. Right, Gretchen? Don't you think?
Yes, it has been motivating for me. I actually also have one and have been checking. And You can also, in my column, I link to a study that has average values if you do want to check sort of where you are now and as you
Yep.
improve where you are. You can find that information online.
Yes. And of course, there's a difference between men and women and also between ages and
Yeah,
right
of
hand
course,
and
and
left
that's
hand.
all in there.
So, it'd be fun to check both. Yeah. So, getting back to exercise, which is what this is all about, we're going to now talk about a new favorite word, exercise snacks, which I love, you love. And I do want to talk about that because, again, you covered it and all the studies behind it. And your article was called "These 2-minute exercise bursts may be better than your regular workout." So, okay, Gretchen, what is an exercise snack? What is this burst? Why is it so good for us? Tell us about that.
I do have to start by saying I tend to pick the subjects for my column based on what fits neatly into my life. And so
Isn't that amazing? So do I.
yes.
I totally get it. Don't you feel like, hey, if it's of interest to me, it's going to be of interest to everybody else, right? That's what I think.
Yes, and I do think that's mostly true. I'm very, very average, so which is helpful. There is the growing interest among exercise scientists in helping us fit exercise into our daily lives because despite everything we know about how good it is for us, most people don't exercise, or they certainly don't meet the guidelines of a half an hour almost every day. And so scientists have been looking for ways to help us really fit it into busy lives. And one way to do that is with what is now called exercise snacking. And that builds on research showing that you don't have to get all of your exercise in sort of one clump, one 30-minute session, that you can spread it out throughout the day and the benefits are cumulative, and it doesn't really matter how short each session is. So you can get an
Even 2 minutes,
exercise.
right?
2
Like even
minutes
2 minutes?
seems to be, yes.
Incredible.
Even less probably matters, but most scientists, when they look at it, say about 2 minutes every half an hour or so, spread out throughout the day. And that can be walking. It can be, in the study I wrote about, they looked at what they called chair squats, which meant you stand up, preferably all the way up onto your tiptoes, because then you're using all of the muscles in your legs. But
Right.
if you can't do that, that's fine. You just stand up, sit down, stand up, sit down, do that 15 times, and it's an exercise snack. And the evidence is really strong that that actually, over the course of a day, will accumulate to the point that you have a workout. Even if you don't do another 30-minute formal workout, that will give you enough exercise to build fitness and to build muscle and also to be really good for mood, all of the things that we want from our exercise. So you can snack on exercise and not feel that it has to be just a chore. Do it when it feels convenient and reasonable for you.
Yeah, and you can even be wearing regular clothes. I mean, you can, as long as they're loose enough for when you're doing the squats and the like, or getting down on the floor and doing a plank or a wall squat. I mean, there's so many things you can do as part of these exercise snacks that will really get your heart rate going if you have access to stairs, right? Go up and down the
Yes.
stairs a few times. I mean, march in place. I mean, take your dog for a walk, of course. We were talking before we were recording about my dog's right over here. Pete's always in the room with me. People don't know that, but actually they do because I say it every time.
I mean, if it's possible during a Zoom call to get everyone to stand up and walk around their office,
Mm-hmm.
anything that you can do counts. That's another thing, is some people think exercise has to be formal. It has to, your heart rate has to rise to a certain level, all of that. Your body doesn't care. Just get up and move in any way at all that gets your respiration up even a little bit. then blood is flowing better to your brain. It's moving through all of your muscles. And all you need to do is a few minutes of that. And it has an enormous impact on your well-being and your health and your ability to think. That another thing that a
Yes.
number of the studies have shown, and I didn't write about it in this one, is, but it does, there's very good evidence that exercise snacking is really good for productivity and creativity if you are still at work. It's not hurting your productivity at work, it is improving it.
Yes. And everyone, if you are in fact back in an office setting, even maybe just a few days a week, that's a really great way to have a meeting, is just go off and maybe take a fast walk with someone as you have to discuss something, or even if, especially if it's a kind of difficult conversation to have. I find that walking together makes it a lot easier. And of course, then you're multitasking because you're also doing something really great for your body and brain. So that is really, really fun. So far we've seen 2 articles that Gretchen has done, everyone, that can really contribute to your overall health and well-being. And these are not difficult to do. That I just want to make sure that I point that out. Not difficult to do. So now the next article we're going to talk about, Gretchen, is so fun because I'm a major fan of Monty Python. So when I did see that, I went, this is too fun. Okay. You all remember the silly walk. You have to. If you're in my age group, around my age group, you know the skit we're talking about, right, Gretchen? It's the one, the silly walk.
So
anyway, I would, exactly right. And if you're not a Monty Python fan, maybe this is not the right podcast for you, right? So you wrote about the silly walk, and as it turns out, there's some science behind how really good it is for you. Just talk to us about that, please.
Yes, every year that British Medical Journal does a special issue at Christmas time of studies that are legitimate studies, but a little bit offbeat. And the one that I really loved this year looked at energy expenditure if you walk like the people in the Ministry of Silly Walks, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's John Cleese and Michael Palin from Monty Python doing really silly walks and being very serious about it as if they're in the government. But it of course, became a very famous skit for those of us in our generation.
Oh, I'm picturing it right now. And, and also the way their legs, how to swing up and out, and not easy.
John Cleese in particular, he is the minister of silly walks, and he walks with an extraordinarily silly walk. His legs all over, as you said, he looks sort of like a bird that's gone insane. But the scientists behind this are regular exercise scientists, and they were interested in the idea that walking really inefficiently, this is about as inefficient a walk as you could imagine, whether that would basically amount to really good exercise. Because we humans as a species are extremely efficient walkers, which is why we don't burn a lot of calories or get huge gains in fitness when we just walk, because we're really good at it. So they wondered, if you make people basically bad at walking by doing this really silly kind of walking, where again, you're lifting your legs really high, you're bending really low, doing all sorts of silly things to how you walk, would that increase the amount of energy that it takes, which is basically what you want from exercise? You want to be expending energy and getting your heart rate up. And it turned out a silly walk is a really good form of exercise. It is what they call vigorous exercise. And the formal exercise guidelines say you only need about 75 minutes a week of vigorous exercise. So this study, and it was a legitimate study in a lab, they had people doing their versions of the silly walk while they wore face masks and measured everything. And the scientists determined about 11 minutes a day of silly walking would get you absolutely as much exercise as you would ever need. So if you don't want to
That's
do a
incredible.
half an hour of normal walking, do 10 minutes of silly walking and you have a really good workout. And it's fun.
And actually, that could be an exercise snack,
It could be a very good
very
exercise
effective
snack.
and
And
efficient.
get your whole office to do it with you. See?
Exactly right. Oh, I just love that column. It was so much fun. It was so much fun. So now looking back at 2022, right? I mean, we're in 2023 now. So what was the most surprising bit of research that came across your desk, or what made you go, wow, this is really amazing, and really kind of stopped you in your tracks?
Probably the study that I found the most surprising and that also affected me personally the most was a
Mm-hmm.
study looking at this concept of being an active couch potato, which basically the scientists define as someone who gets their 30 minutes of exercise as the guidelines call for, and then sits the entire rest of the day. And what they found was the effects of the sitting were so strong, they almost undid the benefits of the exercise. So it was a really good reminder for me because I write about exercise by sitting in my chair all day. It was a really good
Right.
reminder that good health is not just about getting your exercise, it's also about just moving more. Getting up every half an
Moving
hour or so,
more.
get your exercise
Mm-hmm.
snack. The really great thing about exercise snacking is not just that it's exercise, it's also breaking up your sitting. And it does look like for really good health, we need to not be sitting a lot. And so that was
Yeah.
probably sort of the study that sort of hit me in the head the most, reminded me
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
do
And
the
that you've
things that
really applied to your own life
yes,
in a very big way, it sounds like.
I definitely am getting up more than I was. And I knew that I needed to get up more, but the idea that you could actually sit so much that you would undercut the benefits of exercise was a
Right.
really stark reminder of how important it is to just move around.
Yeah. I mean, we're all guilty of that. I too. I mean, I'm a writer also, and I sit at my desk and hours can go by sometimes, and I
Mhm.
realize I haven't really moved. It's a good thing I have a dog that needs to be walked several times a day. But for the most part, though, I really have taken all of this to heart, and I really do move around throughout the day. I do. I mean, I really do, do what I tell everybody else that they should be doing as best as I can.
I'm getting better at it.
You're getting better at it, right? But for those who are finding it difficult because they forget or they're so engaged with what they're doing that they just don't realize they haven't moved, which can happen, maybe setting a timer or something like that, or having
There
somebody
and
call
lots
you
of
every half
apps.
hour, like your daughter or a son.
There are lots of apps you can download now for your phone, your computer, anything that will remind you every half an hour or so that, hey, it's time to get up.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually have
Mm-hmm.
set
Mm-hmm. I
one of
love
those
how
apps on
this
my phone.
kind of ties back to, yeah, great. It's wonderful. And it's really great how all of this ties back to what we were saying earlier with column number 1,
Hmm.
about strength training, column number 2 that we talked about the exercise snacks. I mean, it all just makes so much sense. We can do this, everyone. Like, this is not complicated. Right, Gretchen?
It's all really easy, in fact, and doesn't require a lot of effort. It doesn't require sweat. I mean, just get up and walk around for 2 minutes. It doesn't have to be hard. It's just try to fit more movement into your life, and your body will be happier, your mind will be happier, everything will be better.
Everything will be better. But, we were talking a little bit before recording, Gretchen, you and I, about how sometimes we can do everything in our power, everything in our control, like these things that we're recommending, and things still can turn out differently. You had an experience with a very dear friend of yours. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yes, this was probably the other thing related to exercise and health that hit me hardest in 2022 was a very dear friend of mine who was very fit and not that old. And we ran half marathons together. And out of the blue, she had a heart attack and she passed away very quickly. And it was a really, obviously, it was totally gut wrenching. And it was also a really good reminder that exercise and fitness, for all it's incredibly good for you, it doesn't make you immortal. It doesn't protect you from everything. And it doesn't mean that you can ignore the signals from your own body. And many women do. I'm going to go get a calcium score, which I've never gotten. I've never worried about it. My husband is now insisting. If I had symptoms such as shortness of breath that was new, pain in anywhere, I spoke with cardiologists because I did write about this. If you have pain anywhere above your belly button that is new, go see someone. Don't assume that it's nothing. Don't think that because you're a woman and a mother and a caretaker that you should ignore what's going on inside of you. Go have it checked. And it doesn't matter how fit you are. It doesn't matter if you run marathons. If something is wrong and you can feel something is different, go have it checked. Please go have it checked.
Thank you so much for that. And, this is a reality for so many women. We do tend to ignore signals that maybe our body is sending to us, thinking, oh, it'll go away, because we also put everybody else before ourselves very often throughout our lives. And this is also true of as women go through menopause and estrogen levels drop, and then that really can create changes to the heart. We've covered this, Gretchen, many, many times on GRUFFtalk with various medical experts as a way to get that message out to women, because for the most part, the GRUFFtalk audience are women in midlife and beyond. And it's just so important. Listen to your body. Like Gretchen, you're getting a check that you didn't think you needed to have ever. And here you are getting it. And that's really wise.
I had no plans until now. And I very much wish that my friend Anne had been able to do the same. And for everyone out there, please just get whatever tests, get whatever consultations you need, and don't ignore anything, no matter how fit you are.
Yeah. And one other thing I also always like to encourage people to do is to reassess everything every couple of years, because what was working for you maybe 5 years ago may not be working for you anymore. I know that's especially true as you get older. So I know I do that on a regular basis. I really reassess what I'm eating, how I'm sleeping, and if something isn't right, certainly how I'm working out. Like I've added, for example, in more strength training in the last few years for all the reasons that we've just been talking about. And if something doesn't feel right, I do make sure that I have it checked with my doctor. For example, when I went through menopause, I was having heart palpitations, very, very common. So I had it checked out. As it turned out, it was really a very common symptom. But who knew? I wouldn't have known had I not had it checked out. So thank you, Gretchen, for that message. This was incredibly fun, very entertaining. Really, you gave us so much actionable information. Thank you for that. And I really hope everyone reads everything in the show notes that the links that I'll be putting in, and really pays attention to everything that we were saying today. Because again, these are actionable, they're doable. You can do it, everyone. It's not going to take, as you said, doesn't take a lot of energy. But of course, the whole point is that you do want to, exert a little energy throughout your day to strengthen your bones, your heart, your brain, everything, as I like to say, head to toe, inside and out. So there will be links also about your wonderful book, The First 20 Minutes, which I just loved. I think I was the first person in line to get it, as I told you. Are there 3 things that you would like the GRUFFtalk audience to remember from our chat today, Gretchen?
If I had to pick three things, I would say for one, strength train, especially if you're not, even if you are, keep it up. Secondly, try not to sit more than about half an hour at a time if you possibly can. And then the last is make sure that whatever kind of exercise or activity you're doing is fun, that you enjoy it, because you won't stick with it if you don't. And if that means a silly walk, great. If it means a completely sober, stroll, that's fine too. But find joy in moving and you'll stick with it.
Oh, thank you so much for that. And please come back to Gruff Talk. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. If you enjoyed this episode of Gruff Talk, please do two things. First, share it with all your friends and family, and subscribe to Gruff Talk wherever you listen to podcasts, including YouTube, so you never miss a single episode. Until next time, remember this: we can't control getting older, but we can control how we do it. Talk to you soon. Age Better Podcast is a proud member of the Sound Advice Network. Sound Advice, women's voices amplified.